Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Charmed. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously, the facility that Helen is in, because at first it seems like there's an attack or something. Then I was like, because at first I was like, because I kept thinking like that nurse is like, oh, you need to get your hair brushed to like Helen's Darklighter. So I was like, okay. So I was like, is she secretly there to bust her out? But it's like, no, she just made the mistake of leaving the door open because some other stuff went down. Obviously, by the time Harry shows up, he finds out like everyone there is dead. Well, at least, it would seem like everyone is, but can we see any survivors or whatever? But it turns out one of those people that's there is a member of that organization that Nadia belongs to, which is interesting. Throughout the episode, we never actually got to find out why. I wonder, is it just, because now it kind of presents the opportunity of kind of being like, okay, so Harry's Darklighter might be working for them. I mean, granted, they're the ones that Ray ended up selling those tools to anyway. Well, the Darklighter's weapon to anyway. But it begs the question, like, did they need another Darklighter, or were they trying to get both Helen's Darklighter and her Whitelighter self so that they could perform some kind of experiment? Maybe there was something like that, or maybe they just was like, hey, why not get an extra Darklighter? The question is, why now? Whatever the case may be, it was unsuccessful because the dude that was sent ended up getting killed by Darklighter Helen. So it's really interesting because I think this episode really kind of gave us more insight into the whole Darklighter and Whitelighter situation. Because especially because, like, you know, Mel really got to really know more about Helen because Harry had gotten some, like, boxes of stuff that basically covered Helen's history. Because obviously once you become a Whitelighter, your history's kind of hidden from you. Which is, I mean, I get why they did it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, the Elders kind of screwed up on every front. It's like they basically take your entire original life from you, and they basically strip away half of you because they want you to be all good. Because they're kind of thinking like, oh, no darkness is there. But it's like, well, obviously the Elders were flawed, hence charity. But still, it's just that thing of like, they kind of messed up on so many fronts, and now it's like you're kind of having to pay for their mistakes, especially when you dive into Helen's situation, because obviously, and you know, something Mel had talked about, the fact is so much of her life was basically decided for her because of the time she was from, like being married off at like 16 to a dude that was in his 40s, and being in love with someone else, a dude named Daniel, but not, you know, having this moment but never being able to be with each other, you know. And that sucks. And, she missed out on that opportunity of being in love just because of the time. And obviously, her entire life was kind of taken from her. Even her afterlife, considering the whole thing of being a Whitelighter and seeing what the Elders did to her, especially when you think about it in the grand scheme, her being the first Whitelighter, it makes it even more like heartbreaking. Because once again, it's like they hadn't figured out the process yet. So she was kind of like the first, trial basis of splitting the dark and light of a person. So there's that whole situation. And obviously, like, they learned in this episode, it's like, right, Whitelighters can't kill their Darklighters, and Darklighters can't kill the Whitelighters. And this is when Harry figures, like, they figured out, like, what that must mean that Harry's Darklighter's still alive. It's like, right, because the vision Maggie had led them to Ray, but the fact of the matter is, it's like, well, it led them to the Darklighter's weapon, so that's probably the correlation. But in the vision she saw the actual Darklighter, but maybe the visions are more supposed to be, they're direct in some cases, but indirect in others, because it was directly the Darklighter's weapon, but it wasn't actually him there. So this is their first thing of knowing, like, oh, right, Harry's Darklighter is still alive and well. So that's obviously going to be an issue going forward. So their initial plan is to kill Helen's Darklighter, because like they have to be the ones to do it, because Helen can't, and they think it's kind of like the best option considering everything, because it's like, yeah, see what my Darklighter is like, so Helen's must be worse, and every time she comes across someone, she's killing someone. But it's interesting because her Darklighter goes home, but obviously it's been so much time, so her home isn't there anymore, and she goes to the cemetery to visit the man that she would love, Daniel. And obviously, it's a whole interesting conversation because, like, obviously the whole light and dark aspect of everything. And obviously it comes up with Harry and Maggie because Harry at the beginning of the episode was with Abigail, who was like, oh, no, you didn't come here for dinner. You actually came here for dessert. I'm like, whoa, she's super forward about this situation. No shame in that. It's just like, I admire her just being like, I know what I want and I want you. I'm like, that's, whoa. I wish I could be like that, you know, when it, you know, a little more assertive when it comes to, you know, the whole dating someone situation. You know, I'm just like, I just admire that aspect. But obviously Harry's kind of reluctant because it's the whole thing of her being a demon, which is also interesting considering the fact that you have feelings for Macy. But I guess because Macy, first and foremost, is a witch who just happens to be a demon just because she was resurrected. So, and it wasn't really by choice. It's not just by nature. It's because of a necromancy thing that kind of brought her back that led to that. Whereas, you know, Abigail is full-blown demon and a witch. So it's, I guess in his mind, it's like she's a demon first. Whereas, like I said, in Macy's case, but it's also different because Macy's an exception because he's gotten to know her and following for her first, and then potentially because granted he does have feelings for Abigail, but it's complicated because he is who he is. You know, even with the elders going and everything and their, you know, rules kind of going, like the fact of the matter is he still feels kind of trapped within it. And that was even something, you know, Maggie was getting at because she was like, I get it. Having feelings for a demon, you know who you're talking to, right? Like, because she has the whole Parker situation. Like, life isn't all black and white. It is major shades of gray, you know? So it's like we don't have to kind of fit in that mode of just because, you know, just because someone's a demon doesn't mean it shouldn't be like, you shouldn't feel bad that you have feelings for Abigail potentially. So, but I think it's also because Harry's torn between her and Macy, and he, you know, because I think he has stronger feelings for Macy, but he does feel something for Abigail. He does. It's not like it's nothing at all, but I think his feelings for Macy just complicates that. So, but nevertheless, they were going to originally kill her Darklighter Helen, but they stopped. In particular, Maggie, because she can understand. It's like the fact of the matter is, you know, your life was kind of taken from you. The person you wanted to spend your life with, you didn't get that chance to. So it's like, but they were able to talk her down. Like, the fact is, we're not going to hurt you. The fact of the matter is, we're going to take you somewhere safe. So they end up taking her back to where Whitelighter Helen is. And it's an interesting situation because they're like, okay, so how's this going to go about? And they were suggesting a merge, but it's like, Harry's like, it's not something we're aware of, like what that could look like, what that could end up being. But for Helen, it's like she wanted to have that choice because she's never had a choice in her entire life. So she wanted, you know, this to be kind of something, a decision she wanted to make. So, and it was about to happen, but sadly, because she saw the Book of Elders, Darklighter, you know, Helen ended up kind of having like, you know, a flashback moment and ended up attacking everybody. So Helen, she stabs herself, and it's like, because, you know, it was her choice. And the way that conversation went down, is that how that works? Because I mean, I know he's tried to heal Whitelighters before, but I'm wondering, is it just because if it's a self-inflicted situation, it's completely different? Is that what I mean, I'm sure if he can get to it in time, but he was like, because it was self-inflicted, I guess it's a little different. I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. That was just an interesting little tidbit of like, oh, if it's self-inflicted, he can't help. Is it specifically because she's a Whitelighter and it's self-inflicted, or just all self-inflicted wounds can't be healed? That's what I'm curious about. You know, might be, you know, thinking about it too much, but I just thought that was like an interesting little bit of detail. But for once again, Helen was able to make this choice herself. So obviously for her, you know, at the very end, we see them come back together. I was almost thinking like, oh, maybe with them fusing back together, she'll be good. But it's like, no, she dies. But she knew that was going to happen, and she was fine with that. It's just because she wanted to be able to go out on her own terms, do what she wanted to do, you know? And maybe you can be hopeful that, hey, maybe in some shape or form, whatever is out there, maybe she can be laid to rest again, and maybe she can be reunited with Daniel. You know, you think of silver linings like that, and you hope for it, you know. But what I thought was kind of pretty interesting was because of what this whole thing meant to just everyone, because it made everyone kind of think about like, okay, what do they want from their lives? Because the fact of the matter is, obviously, and it's that big thing. And once again, I've brought this up before, and I always thought it was a really interesting element of the original show, was the fact is of the charm ones struggling to have relationships. You know, it's like you basically have to put your love life on hold, and that was a constant thing for them, like being charmed ones in the original show costing their love life over and over again. Literally the same thing happens in this show. But now because of this opportunity, it's like we're lucky to live in a time where we can be with who we want to, love who we want to, when we want to. So let's not squander that opportunity, that this freedom that we have that women like Helen didn't. So for Helen's sake, we kind of got to live our lives to the fullest and kind of enjoy it, you know? So I thought that was kind of neat. And obviously, you know, that leads to Mel meeting up with Ruby and, you know, kind of taking her out because Ruby, once again, kind of like, yo, I know what I want and I'm going to go for it type of situation because, you know, Ruby was very forward about like, yo, which, you know, Mel was like, I appreciate that, you know, so, but she kind of put it on reserve just because it's like, you know, this whole life is not the easiest thing for a relationship, but at the end we see her giving it a chance. And obviously Maggie, because of the whole Parker situation, but I'm also sure because of the whole, well, Jordan being human too, that makes you reserved. But to be fair, he's a human that's in the know, but even humans in the know, things don't always work out well. Gavin being a prime example of that. Oh, Nico also being a prime example of that, but even so, more so with Gavin because he literally, did I say Gavin? I meant Galvin, because it legitimately ended with him dying, but, you know, so, but, nevertheless, because of this, Maggie's willing to put her feelings for, you know, Parker aside, you know, leave that darkness behind and just kind of enjoy the joys of life. So she's willing to take a chance with Jordan. But to be fair, let's not forget there's that whole pesky situation of he does have a girlfriend, and that's just going to be a complicated thing. Once again, you even saw last episode, they were definitely feeling each other. So it's like, it's not like it's just like a one-sided thing. It's definitely both sides feeling it. But then we also get to the whole complicated thing that's like, okay, the whole Harry and Macy thing, which let's switch over to Macy's side of things. Obviously, Macy's kind of got in her head like, hey, maybe if I get rid of like my demon side, maybe my witch powers will kind of restore, which is something I thought before, like, yeah, like her demon side might be what's keeping her from getting her powers back. So she goes to the one person she can turn to, Abigail, which obviously that's a complicated thing. And it's like, okay, I love that Abigail being like figuring it out, like, oh, you think maybe getting rid of your demon powers means you'll be able to get your powers back, and the power of 3 will be restored. Am I kind of getting warm? And then it's like, oh, you're willing to help me out. Why is that? Oh, could it be because you think that, you know, you want Harry to find out about your good deed, and the fact is he'll finally look at you like you're worthy and everything? Am I getting warm? So it's like tit for tat with those two, kind of figuring out what each other wants in the situation, and they kind of agree to it. So it's like the only means of getting rid of Macy's power is with that dagger, which involves her having to reveal to Macy Parker's still alive, which at the same time I'm like, there's going to be a part of you that's going to feel guilty about that. Because the sad thing is, and it's even something she said later on, like, you are here by manipulation, but by your own choices. Yeah, Parker made his own choices, but he was, in fact, manipulated into that situation, which you recognize. So it is a little shitty for you not to tell Maggie, but at the same time, it's like, you love your sister, you care about her, and you want her to move on because she's in a good place. And obviously going, like, there's always a complicated thing with this whole Parker thing, so it'd be more of a step backwards than a step forward. But I am curious if Maggie finds out that Macy kind of held that back from her despite of what the situation was. It's like, wait, you knew what was happening? Wait, you knew Parker was manipulated into that situation? How can you not tell me? That's, you know, that's going to come to light eventually. The question is, like, how is Maggie going to end up finding out? That's going to be a whole thing. Because Parker's original thing is like, okay, he wasn't going to help, especially he's not going to help his sister who took everything from him, took the woman he loved away from him as well. But obviously she made it perfectly clear, like, oh, like, I'm the one in control here. And the fact of the matter is, you know, the plan is to torture him and then kill him. But, you know, Macy's talked her out of it. It's like, the fact of the matter is, we don't have to go to their lengths. The fact of the matter is, we can find another way. Let me talk to Parker. So Parker is willing to help because, you know, Macy, which is also kind of a more messed up thing too when you actually think about it, because it's like, oh, you care about Maggie, right? Do this for her, not for me, because if we can get the power of 3 protected, because there's a lot of powerful darkness and people coming after us, so we need the power of 3 to be protected. So you're doing this so that Maggie's protected. It's like, fine. In exchange, give her this note. I just want her to know that I'm alive. And it's like, but she's moving on. I don't want her to move on. That's the thing, you know? So Macy's in that complicated situation. Obviously, she wants to look out for her sister's best interest, what she believes to be her best interest. which obviously that's going to be the argument of like, who are you to make decisions for me? You should have given me that opportunity to make that choice. If I wanted to go, because at the same time, it's like, it's not right for Parker to be held by his sister, but at the same time, it is a thing of like, if the demon world found out about what Abigail did, I mean, obviously some of the demon world knows, more specifically, obviously Godric, but obviously some other people as well. The fact of the matter is, if that came to light, it would compromise her position and people would most likely kill her, and it would kind of also kind of bring things back full force to demons hunting witches. It'd just be kind of like where we were at the start, and there'd be no kind of fixing that. Even if Parker got back into position, there's still people like Godric who wouldn't be too keen about it. I mean, granted, I'm sure Parker would kill Godric, but still there'd be people who wouldn't be too keen about how Parker would want to potentially go about that. Hey, he might even try and restart the whole marriage to Maggie thing, which that's going to be complicated considering the whole, well, he was pissed about the whole her and Jordan thing, which there was nothing then. Now that there potentially is something, he kind of has a reason to get jealous now, so that's a whole thing in itself. But fortunately, when it was all said and done, Abigail was able to remove Macy's power. The fact is, when Macy didn't get up for a second, I was like, oh, Macy's dead. I was like, her power, well, her demon style was made to resurrect her from the dead. So maybe without her demon style, she's dead. But it's like, oh no, she gets up. I was like, oh, never mind. I thought at that moment Abigail was going to have to put her demon power back. Because it was interesting because even she had said like Macy doesn't realize how special like the whole like fire element is actually apparently super rare. I guess it's like a very rare form of demon powers. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. And so now that she's lost her demon powers, she, tries to use her telekinesis, but that doesn't work. So in the end, sacrificing her demon powers, she now doesn't have any powers at all. Now, which kind of makes me think, like in the grand scheme of things, it's not a demon blockage situation. It's more of a mental, psychological thing. Because I think it's because Macy herself is kind of confused and a little lost, because obviously it's like, a lot of stuff has come up because obviously the whole complicated relationship she has with, Harry's Darklighter, and just Harry himself, which that also speaks volumes about obviously like the Darklighter. Once again, we kind of already knew about like how Darklighter's kind of long after what was already important to the person. Like hence, Helen's Darklighter went to Daniel, whereas, Harry's Darklighter went after Macy because they both care about her because they stem from the same person. So, and this was always my thought that when it was all said and done, Harry and his Darklighter are going to fuse back together. They're going to be, which also is actually sad when you actually think about it even more, because Helen's going, that now officially makes Harry the only Whitelighter left. So that's actually kind of mega depressing when you actually think about it in the grand scheme of things. That was already depressing enough, but at least I think in somewhere, shape, or form, he knew at least Helen was out there. Now it's like, Jada, wherever she is, she's out there and she's half Whitelighter. So there's that, but I mean, who knows? Because the moment the elders died, like every Whitelighter connected to them died, not unless there's others out there like Harry who are disconnected, like him and Helen. So there's that whole situation. But circling back to what I was bringing up before, I think it's because Macy doesn't really know what she wants. Like I said, it's more of a psychological thing, kind of dealing with both her dualities as both a demon and a witch. That whole thing, plus her own love life situation, I think. Because obviously everyone's powers is tied to both their mental state and their emotions. So I think that's, until she kind of figures out where all that lies for her, I think that's going to be the deciding factor in when her powers come back. And then once again, I would assume her powers are going to be different, much like Mel and Maggie's are. So it probably won't be telekinesis. It might be a situation of like, you need the right circumstances to push, you to use your powers into form that they really are now. Maybe not. We'll see. But you have that complicated thing of like, obviously she was upset and Harry was like, but it's not too late. She's like, it's not. And they start leaning them. It's like, oh, it's going to get interrupted. And they start making, I was like, is Abigail going to pop in and see this? And that's going to make things complicated. Oh no, it was all in Macy's head. And, Harry was like, no, the fact of the matter is, we'll figure it out together. And he kind of walks away. So it is that thing of like, I think it solidifies what I brought up. Like, the fact of the matter is Macy's not 100% sure what she wants. And like I said, I think that's what's causing the blockage with this whole situation. Like I said, we'll see. But obviously the thing at the end with Parker asking Abigail what she's really up to. Because now at the end of it, now she has more power because she ended up absorbing all of Macy's power. yes, once again, it is all about Harry in the sense that, like, yes, she likes Harry and cares about Harry, but it is a thing, and as other people have suggested too, it's like, it definitely is a deception thing. She has to be manipulating it, but the question is it just for the purpose of, oh, I like you, and but it has to be, like, more. Like, what I'm trying to say is it a combination of the two? Oh, I like you, and but I need you for more, or is it just this whole thing is just pure manipulation? So it's just like I'm pretending like I care about you when in fact I don't. Cause I think, like, getting a Whitelighter on her side, she must need it for something, like maybe corrupting a Whitelighter is like some ingredient or part of some spell or something. I don't know, like, but there's definitely got to be an element to this, and I'm curious to see what that means. You know, what is her end game? You know. Because, like, it seems like, you know, because I think at the end you definitely want the charmed ones on your side, but I guess it's like you wouldn't want them getting fully powered back because obviously maybe one day they decide to kind of turn against you in the demon world. So it's like you probably trying to nip that in the bud right now. So maybe she's trying to get enough power so that she can kill them, because where they currently stand, it's not enough. Or maybe she's going to manipulate them into, well, she kind of manipulated them into the whole situation with Parker to kind of help her basically get the throne. So maybe kind of the same thing kind of applies, where she gonna basically, because where things stand, she's keep a peaceful relationship with them, so she can kind of turn to them if need be. So, you know, we'll have to, you know, ultimately wait and see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.